Let's be honest, parenting can be messy and hard, but also so rewarding. In this podcast, we'll share all the ups and downs of parenthood, as well as share some of our favorite tips and tricks for parenting using both our experiences and expertise from our professional lives as a speech and language pathologist and teacher, but also our everyday lives as moms, just trying to balance it all. We're so glad you could join us.
Hello and welcome to And Then We Had Kids. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Sheena.
And, it's July 6th, so a lot of things have happened this past weekend, and Sheena and I are both really closely tied to the Highland Park community, and all of the events that have happened there over July 4th have really hit close to home. And so if you are someone who needs support of any kind, whether that's support for yourself, support for your loved ones, if you're wanting to support those who have been affected, please visit our website. We will have lots of links towards things that can be helpful for you and for the community. And in times like these, it's also important to think about people who are doing good in this world. And Sheena and I are fortunate enough to have someone here actually for this episode who is doing just that, doing really good things for our world. So I'll let Sheena introduce our guest for this episode.
So our guest today is Heather Booysen. I am privileged to know Heather back from our dancing days. I grew up being a dancer, ballet, jazz, tap. And
which is so fun. I feel like you haven't quite
hit that
of who you are and your identity of like this
for a while
dance
before
history,
before the whole like pre-med debacle. I did want to be a dancer for a little bit.
See, you didn't share that in the first episode. Yeah. Okay. So little tidbit side life of Sheena here.
Yeah. Miss dancing. But I'm too old for that now. Just turned 40.
Holler.
You're never too old.
Yeah. There you go. Heather, perfect. Chime in and perfect.
Cool.
I'm never told to dance. This is so true.
But so Heather is a phenomenal dancer. We met in high school, and she is one of the few people that I actually still regularly keep in touch with from high school, despite her moving away. But she, not only is she an amazing dancer, she's a very talented photographer. She actually did a boudoir shoot for me when I got engaged, and that was like my
your gift,
like my gift to my husband.
I forgot about
that.
I was
Heather's the only person I feel
this.
comfortable getting naked in front of. So she's a fantastic photographer and does family shoots and newborn shoots and weddings and all kinds of stuff.
No more weddings.
Okay, no more weddings. But I think one of the things that I really enjoyed watching Heather do is she also now does dance photography. And with this, I think, one of the reasons we're bringing Heather on is because she now is adding author to her long list of amazing talents. But her book that we're going to talk a little bit more about today really kind of marries two of my loves and my passions in terms of dance and inclusion. Jenny and I have worked in special education for many years. We're just not going to put a number on it.
Yeah.
And also coming from a biracial background and just having we just love diversity, right?
Yes.
Whatever that diversity may mean. And so this book of Heather's really just marries those two things together. And I'm going to stop talking about her, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself and share a little bit about herself, her journey. She is a mother to two very handsome boys. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather to kind of introduce yourself a little bit further versus that whole,
thanks for having me.
Lengthy spiel.
I'm glad we could do this in person.
Yes. This is actually, I think, our first recording. Second recording in person, but first with a guest in person.
Oh,
yes.
So congrats.
And I came all the way from Virginia for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So Sheena and I have known each other for a long time. Grown up in the suburbs and moved away. I left. I was like, bye.
Yeah.
See you
Yeah.
later.
I had my time. Yeah.
I went to Buffalo, New York for school and majored as a dancer. And I graduated college with a broken foot as a dance
I
major.
remember that.
So that was great. I mean, it was quite an experience. And I just
Right at the time that you're probably like auditioning for jobs.
Well, I like missed
and-
my senior showcase
Yeah.
and like all those things. So it was crappy. And I remember like coming home and having a graduation party, and my uncle was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know, figure it out." And the day that I like got cleared from my doctor to like dance again, was the day I got a contract for Carnival Cruise Lines. So I literally came home from the doctor's office, checked my email, and I had an offer for a job. So I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dance.
There we go.
So yeah, so I did that for a couple years and met my husband, who's from South Africa. And we came back to Chicago for we were here for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then he joined the service and we moved to Virginia, and we've been there ever since. So
Wow.
that's where we're at. And luckily enough, one of my friends from college opened a dance studio in my town in Williamsburg, Virginia. And so I work with someone that I've known since college,
Right.
which is amazing.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it was just like, it was like so ironic, and it's really nice. We have the same training and background and,
Right.
all that. So, yeah, so I teach dance, and photography started. I always loved photography. I remember doing it in high
You
school.
did it in high school. I
Yeah.
remember you took like
Just
the photography
the
classes.
Right.
I did not.
And just sort of like did it for fun throughout college
Right.
and that. And then when I had my first son, I literally had nothing to do. We just moved to Virginia. I was pregnant and I didn't have a job yet. Like my husband was traveling for work already for the service. And I was like, what am I going to do? And the military has these courses for lower ranked enlisted spouses.
Oh,
And
I
so
didn't know
it's
that.
like grant money
Yeah.
for like, the lower enlisted. So it was really nice because I was like, well, I've got this good camera. Let me just take a course on how to use a digital camera properly and like understand what I'm going to do with it. And I did, and it turned into a business. So, it grew into something. And then as I was teaching and had access to dancers, I was like, why should I not like photograph dancers? Like that's what I want to do. And
Right.
so it turned, as I have my side of my business that's like family and that kind of stuff, and I do some like marketing for businesses. I love working with dancers, and so it's grown into something. And I have an ambassador program and pull from my studio that I teach at, and a bunch of other local studios, which is really, really nice to work with. And as a dance teacher, I was like, there's always that like time when you have little kids and they're really scared to go on stage. And so that's where the story came from. And I was like, this is something that I need to write. The story was about an introduction of being on stage for the first time, and the
Okay.
lights and the sounds and the busyness and the craziness. It had nothing to do with what it's turned into when I
Right.
started. It was
Yeah.
just the story to like,
Yeah.
help my little baby dancers not be afraid.
In our world, we call it like a social story.
Right.
That's what's
Like how do you
coming in
kind
my
of
mind.
prepare them
Yeah.
for something
Yeah.
that's about to happen, teach them about something new and what to expect.
Right, because as much as I can say to them, it's going to be loud and dark and then bright,
Yeah.
and all these things
Yeah.
are going to be happening. They can't picture that in their
Right.
head.
Yeah. If they haven't experienced it yet,
Yeah.
then they're
They can't remember.
it's like
something.
you get those cute nods and they're
Yeah.
like sweet. And then when
then
they're on
like,
stage, you're like,
scared.
no,
Right.
yeah.
You get like
Scared.
the cute little ballerinas on stage that all of a sudden like bust out into
Yeah.
tears
Yes.
because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know? So-
And that's what I always have tried to avoid
Right.
with my little ones. Is like, well, let's talk about it. Let me show you. And I would show them backstage. And I was like, if I had a book, this would be easier
Yeah.
and to prep them. And so I made that book. And then I don't know, it turned into.
No, I mean,
something.
I was just gonna say, so for those that don't know, what is the title of the book, and talk to us a little bit about the book itself.
So the book is called Marley Takes the Stage. Little girl's name is Marley. And it falls under Dance Knows No Boundaries, which is where my dance photography with the book, which we'll get into, comes into play. So Dance Knows No Boundaries for me came out because I had been working with people as professional dancers who had unique attributes.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to think of a word, and one of my students said, everyone's unique. And I was like, that's the word I want to use.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've worked with dancers who have different disabilities, who are different ethnicities and shapes and sizes and different styles of dance. And so that's sort of where this all comes into play. And at first of the book, I was just going to showcase different styles of dance, because when you pick up a dance book, it's about ballet.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want a book about tap and jazz and modern and hip hop and like all the different, Irish dance. Like I want to showcase all these
like
things.
get kids hooked,
absolutely.
or like
Yeah.
exactly right. That's so true. I think from someone, I don't have any kind of dance background other than like when I was little, I did ballet, right? Like that's like, and then that was about it.
Right. And so I was like, well, it should showcase styles, different styles. And I was talking to a friend of mine who is a designer, and she was like, we were talking through that stuff, and she said, well, what about other diversities? What about ethnicities? What about genders? What about abilities? And I was like, well, that's really good. So I like sat and made a list and like combed my social media of like, who do I follow? Who is inspiring? Who do I look to?
Yeah.
And I made a list of either attributes I wanted to showcase or people I wanted to connect with and showcase. And so it was people close to home and people that I don't know that I cold emailed. And,
Oh, wow.
And might have thousands of followers on social media and were willing to be a part of this project from the ground up, which was really awesome. So
and it also speaks to what you were like, the message that you're sending is so important.
Yeah.
So like the fact that like you did those cold emails and then you got responses, incredible.
I feel like you can't be afraid to do an email, and
the worst,
right,
yeah, you're gonna hear no or
they don't
nothing.
respond.
They don't
yes.
respond. So the book itself is the story of learning to get over stage fright, right? And to not be afraid, and understanding and turning your stage fright jitters into excitement jitters, right? Which is what happens. The visual representation is inclusion and diversity. So there's not a single word that mentioned that Marley, the main character, is supposed to be from Asian, like an Asian culture.
Yeah.
There's not a single word that says like Imani is African-American and has an Omnipod because she's diabetic. There's nothing that says like Camille has hearing aids. It just shows it.
Right.
And so I think little kids are so visually like connected. That's what they see.
Right.
So it's really important that that's not what the story's about. The story has its own point, but just to give each kid like an opportunity to be like, whoa, I kind of connect with that person because I have red hair, I have freckles, or I have glasses, or
Well, and how many
anything.
times are the characters in books so kind of quote unquote cookie cutter, right?
Yes.
And so to see that diversity in another storybook character, right, is so powerful. I think it makes me think of, there's like a picture going around on social media of a little boy in a wheelchair at Target who's looking up at a clothing ad, and the clothing ad depicts a picture of another boy in a wheelchair. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it's someone finally like me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where the characters came from, was to showcase just everyone's uniqueness and that everyone's different, and but everyone can still dance and everyone can still move in their own capacity because everyone can do it differently. And so, it includes age, there's representation of different ages and a dancer in a wheelchair and styles and physical body sizes. So I just think it's so beautiful. And my illustrator did a really great job of like taking all the images I sent her like hundreds of images and was like, this is what I want this character to like embody.
Yeah. So how did you even go about finding an illustrator?
So
did you know her beforehand?
No.
Okay.
Facebook.
Okay.
Right. So I joined a couple Facebook like children's author groups.
Okay.
And I quickly learned that like, as you comment, like I'm looking for an illustrator, you get spammed like 5,000 things. Right.
Yes.
So I then decided to like choose a style. So I looked through books and chose a style and said, this is the style I want, put some images up, like, this is what I want. And so I got less spam, still got less spam, but I got, you get people who are like, oh, I can do it for really cheap. And I was like, well, that's not what I want.
That's not the point.
No, I just don't want it.
This is a
so
project.
I had a couple really good illustrators message me, and I talked to a few, and Eva and I just really connected. Now Eva's in Spain.
Okay.
So that was really interesting and cool and fun to work with her because
Right.
well, we had time differences. So we always had like, a little bit of extra time between our like correspondences. And I think we talked on Zoom like once or twice. Otherwise it was like voice messages and emails and but it was great. She was able to, we talked about the story and we really connected personally on Zoom, which is a thing now.
Yeah. Yes.
And so she was like, yeah, I want to take this on. And we did it. And so, like I said, I started to gather images of people or representations that I wanted to showcase, but I also had my own images that I looked back through my catalog of dancers that I photographed and found images. I had worked with Evan Ruggiero, who is called on Instagram, Lord Pegleg. And he has a peg leg, and he's a tap dancer, and he's a dance teacher, and he's an actor and a singer and just an amazing human. And I had photographed him a couple years ago for something totally different. And I was like, well, but this is a really great representation. Someone who he was a tap dancer as a child and then lost his leg due to cancer and retaught himself how to tap dance with one thing to make a sound and two on his other foot. Okay. So he's amazing. He's, a working actor and a wonderful teacher and just, like I said, a really nice guy. So I had images like that of people that I had already worked with. And then I thought about my own students. I have my dancer Evie is, she's in like second grade and she wears a hearing aid. And that was really hard because she came to us. They were military and they moved to us during the pandemic. And so we were wearing masks. And I was trying to teach to her. And so I always was very conscious of like pulling my mask down to speak to her so she could read my lips, just to make sure that like, she heard. We was also in tap class, so that made it more fun. Right. Yes. Right. We were like, tap shoes. I was like, all right, come on here, girl, stand next to me. So like she's someone who inspires me every day. Yeah. And I sort of resonate with her because I have recently in the past couple of years, I have some hearing loss of my own. So, I don't need hearing aids, but it's definitely something that, I resonate with her and like what she's going through and wearing a mask and all that stuff. Another one of my dancers is type 1 diabetic. And so she wears her pod and I've got beautiful images of her in these gorgeous, elaborate tutus with her Omnipod on her arm or on her leg. And that's just who she is. And that's part of her. And she's had many young dancers or parents of young dancers at competitions come up to her and say, it's so nice to see that. It can, my daughter is going through that or, needs to have that. And so it's really nice to have that. And then like I said, I cold emailed people and was like, I'm doing this book. The illustrations are in the process, but I want to have images in my book of real life people. So that's the other part of the book is the story ends and it showcases the dancers. And then in the back, you have images of real life dancers with the same representations, whether they're kids or professionals and everything in between. You've got these amazing people who are out there being dancers, doing what they want to do, what they love to do, whether it's as a student or as a working professional. Yeah. And so I cataloged and worked with dancers as many as I could around where I live. I made sure there was some local to me. I went up to DC. I even flew out to LA and worked with some amazing dancers that I had like planned around. Kim Hale, who is she's also often called a grandma. She's like, I'm not a grandma. She's like, I'm your auntie. Like, she's like, she takes hip hop classes in LA and she's a working professional. So awesome. Like she dances in commercials and movies and she works at, for Debbie Allen at her studio. Amanda LeCount, who is a body positive hip hop dancer and she's working in amazing hip hop videos for so many performing artists and on award shows and she teaches and, she's just a great representation of a person who wants to dance and she's doing it and breaking the stereotype. So there's been so many people who have been more than willing to work with me, which is nice. And last summer when I was here in Chicago visiting, I worked with a ton of dancers here, which, people that I've connected to, people that I met, which has been amazing and so nice to have. I feel like my community, where I grew up dancing, to have that, which has been really, really nice.
I feel like that makes your book like extra special. Like not only have you managed to like create a story that helps kids through what can be like a really daunting task of like going on and performing. And you have your parents there who are extremely excited to see their kids, but then you have the piece of like, it's real. Like here are the people. So like, I just think that balance of both is incredible.
Right.
That extra piece of it is amazing.
Not only the cookie cutter dancer, what our visual expectation is what makes it, you know what I mean? There's so many people killing it in the dance world.
Right.
Yeah. With all sorts of different attributes, which is amazing to see. And I feel like that's what I wanted to connect, which has been awesome.
Yeah. So Marley's the main character, correct? But you meet all of these other dancers along the way. Marley aside, since she's kind of the main person, was there another character that kind of really resonated with you, or is it hard to kind of pick because it sounds like you've met so many
I was thinking about
talented
this.
people.
I resonate with all the dancers for different reasons, and I think because I was so particular with my illustrator who knew nothing about dance. There was times I was sending videos of like how to properly position a foot, a turned out foot.
Because a dancer will know.
Yeah.
When you look at it,
I'll be like, it looks great, you guys. And
right. But like a dancer's gonna
will know because there are times where like, even just like, athleisure is very popular now.
Oh my God,
And I will look at an ad of someone who's supposedly advertising like dance wear. I'm like, they are not a dancer.
They're not a dancer. There's plenty of starving dancers who want that job.
Right.
That
person is not a dancer. I can tell by their form.
Yeah. So that was really important. So I literally made videos, was like, here's what you showed and here's what I needed to be, you know, whether it's turnout or arm position, that kind of stuff. So I feel like I just had so much, not control, just input, but like we really worked really well together to create these characters. I really like Camilla, the one with the hearing aids. And I think because she resonates so much with Evie, with my student. And because her visual is literally Evie's picture, because my illustrator Eva really liked her costume that she had on. So it's literally an image of her.
Okay.
Which is,
that's so cool.
which was really nice. I don't know that there's, one per se.
I also feel like when it feels like one of, just another baby of yours, right? Like you can't
nail them all.
You can't pick them.
There's a reason they're in there, right? Yeah.
What did you learn from the process of writing a book? Like
I like surprise you
Jenny
along the way.
About, like, I want to write a book.
Yeah, I feel like it's something we say because like, you have all these ideas, which would be great to like have the finished product, right? Like, and you did all those steps.
So it took me, let's say it's about 2 years.
Okay.
Right.
From like start to finish.
From like my idea to like where I'm at today, which is literally today, my kids were packing up books with me.
I finally got my book.
It's in,
like,
I want it.
It's
in my cart, right? Yeah. Like
all the things that like the process. I feel like I did so much, you can do so much research, right? You can join so many Facebook groups and there's so much information, and it really was a learning experience. And I feel like as much as you want to rush in because you want that instant gratification, right? You want that product. I'm really glad I took my time and I didn't rush. And I like, even now, like there's so much marketing that I'm prepping to do that I have my list made, but I didn't do before because I wanted to have a good final product that I was happy with the quality of. I didn't want to put something out there that I was like, it's doable.
Right.
Like I wanted it to be good. I wanted it. It's so important for it to be good with the message that is out there, for what it is. I think it's important to do right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure it was done right. So I feel like you have to take your time and research all the different avenues. There's so many ways to publish a book. So I chose to self-publish.
Okay.
Which means I did everything myself, literally everything myself. Which I kind of like, because I like to have that as a creative, I want that control. I like, this is mine. Sorry, Amazon, this is not for you. Or like a publisher, right? Like I did submit the story to publishers, but they didn't pick it up, which was fine. Because now I have the final product, and that doesn't mean that maybe a publishing house would not, I could still get picked up, but they're not making changes to my product. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I just feel like it was a learning experience to learn about myself and what I knew, what I didn't know,
Mhm.
what I wanted to teach my kids, what I wanted my
Yeah.
kids to see. Because my kids, my two boys, were part of this whole process, and they listened to the story. You know, I had them listen to me read it out loud, so to make sure it sounded okay. I had them read it to me to
Mhm.
make sure it sounded okay.
Yeah.
I had them look at the images with me, you know, and my students and that kind of stuff. So it was definitely like something that I just wanted to take my time and research. I mean,
Yeah.
then there's all the things that like setting up a store and
Right.
marketing, and you know, that's a whole other TikTok, like it's a whole other ball game. That's,
Yeah.
you know, fun sometimes to do.
Yes.
You know, I don't know.
So speaking of your two boys, what do you do for yourself? What do you do? Like, what's something that's really important to you as a mom?
So I think
How do you find balance in all of your different
Yeah.
avenues?
so I teach dance, and that's definitely, it's a job,
Yeah.
but it's definitely just something that I
It's like
love
your
to
outlet
do,
of
right?
fun.
Yeah, it's my
Yeah,
outlet.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love those evenings in the studio. I love being with, you know, the little kids, but especially my like teenagers. You know, I have two boys at home, and people are always like, "Oh, don't you want to have a girl?" I'm like, I have lots of girls,
Right.
and they're teenagers, and I get to sit at home.
Yeah, you're
right?
like, have fun. They
Yeah,
listen.
I
It's a
love-
good time,
right.
and they leave.
I
Yeah.
love being with them. So I feel like teaching dance, even though it's a job, it's also something that is for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's the movement and dancing with them and that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. And then something that I've started doing in the past couple years is hot yoga.
Ah.
There's a amazing, beautiful space that opened up in our town with like heated floors and infrared panels and freshly circulated air. Like did everything again. Took your time, did everything the right
Did
way.
it right.
And my yoga teacher is a former dancer and performer, and she's a singer. And so like, well, that's who I choose to take class with. I take from, you know, any of them, but like,
Yes.
I'm going to Emily's class. And that's what I do for myself
Nice.
twice a week.
Okay.
I try, you know,
Good for
I
you.
try. It's not, it doesn't always work,
Yeah.
Right.
but you know, it's there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's there.
Well, your book is, I mean, I'm just seeing it more recently. Obviously, I'm sure you've like kind of chatted with Sheena a little bit along the way, but how can people find out more about you and all your avenues, and especially this book?
So I have my social media. Dance Knows No Boundaries is for the book specifically. Everything that happens with the book, I will put on there, Facebook and Instagram.
Mhm.
I have my photography page, just general dance photography. It's called Movement in Motion Photography.
Mm.
And I have a website for Dance Knows No Boundaries, danceknowsnoboundaries.com. You can order the book right from there. On movementinmotionphotography.com, the website, I have a blog. So that's another part of this.
Oh my gosh,
So
incredible.
all it's like new, not new, it's fresh. It's the
There we
next
go.
step. So
Yeah.
all the people who are featured, the real life dancers who are featured in the book, there's more photography of them. Each of them will be getting a blog post.
Oh, nice.
And to tell their story.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So
incredible.
in the book, it's their picture and then like their Instagram and their information, so you can look them up. But I'm gonna have a chance to tell
Yeah, like
each
a
of their
highlight of
stories.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to show more of the work that we created together, because in the book it's one image. So
Right.
there's lots of images from
That's
from
beautiful.
working with those dancers. So
Yeah. And so you said people can purchase your book directly from the website.
Yep, danceknowsnoboundaries.com is the website, and you can order a book, and I will pack it, and my children will help you
Your
pack
help,
it.
yeah, I was about to say, you're mentioning your boys are gonna help in
Yeah.
that little assembly line you
Yeah.
got going
Well,
on.
and now that I have my personal copy, I'll do some posts or some stories with it, maybe do a live read with
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
that'd be
awesome.
fun.
Yeah,
I like that
that'll be
idea.
fun. You know, but going back to my teacher days, I can read upside down and back. So
I did a reading
Super
yesterday
talented.
at a dance studio, my first like in-person dance studio reading to one of the old dance teachers from my studio, and she has her own studio and
Yeah.
her camp kids. And she's like, "How do you want to be so you can read it?" I'm like, "Well, I can read it sideways. Like, that's fine."
Oh yeah,
Like,
no, I've got the upside down,
Yeah.
backwards nailed down.
Right.
Anything else you want to tell our listeners while we have you in town?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, find something you want to do and make a difference.
Yeah.
Showcase what's important to you. Take your time.
Well, thank you so much, Heather, for being here. We really
Thank you
appreciate
for having me.
being able to do this live.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I was telling Jenny earlier, like, I think it's been, the pandemic kind of put a wrench in the mix in terms of us getting to see each other. We don't get to see each other as often as we used to. So I'm glad we got to do this in person, especially after I caught COVID. Bummer. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all of the latest, you can follow us on Instagram @_andthenwehadkids. Thanks again, and like we say, life used to be carefree, and then we had kids.